Welcome everyone. Money in the Bank was actually a good show. I enjoyed most of it, but of course I am not happy about that Seth Rollins decision. It was a solid day of pro wrestling, starting off with Worlds Collide, which I actually want to talk about, and I'm going to talk about that later. Instead of doing Worlds Collide on video, I'm basically just going to talk about it later. Just going to give my general thoughts on it. We'll talk about Nikki Bella returning, and we're going to talk about R-Truth, who apparently is back as Ron Killings. So Ron the Truth Killings. Man, this is going to be some interesting stuff here. But let's talk about the Money in the Bank winners, because that's what we're all here to talk about. Naomi wins the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Not all the seats were full when the show started, so there was a lot of empty seats at the time. I don't know if it was traffic. I don't know if it was, the riots and everything that's going on in Los Angeles, which was very interesting that WWE held a show, Worlds Collide, featuring a lot of Mexicans and AAA performers. Meanwhile, outside in the streets of Los Angeles is ICE versus a bunch of anti-ICE protesters. Big day for Mexicans. Let's hear it for them. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in Mexifornia. It's a lot going on. Anyway, it would fill up later, of course, but at the time it wasn't looking very good. I didn't really care about this match that much because it was a lot of choreography in the spots. They were hitting moves at the same time, like the pop rocks and the code red at the same time, and both Bliss and Rhea Ripley hitting their finishers at the same time. And I was like, because it takes a lot of time to set that stuff up, and you have to look at the other person and then make sure it's being done at the same time. But I did like Stephanie Vaquer using the Devil's Kiss atop the ladder. That was pretty good. To Rhea Ripley. I did like that. I was happy Rhea Ripley didn't win. But Naomi won. So Naomi winning is obviously the right decision. It's the appropriate decision. Wait a minute. Do you even know who's in this match? Because I didn't tell you. It's Naomi, Rhea Ripley, Alexa Bliss, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, and Roxanne Perez. Julia was very quiet in this match. She didn't really do much of anything. She was present, but she wasn't really involved that much. She was just there. But Naomi won. Absolutely the right decision. They've already teased Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton. There's clearly a lot of story there between Tiffany and Naomi. There's also a lot of story there with Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. And as of right now, Naomi probably is the top heel on SmackDown, even though I can't tell you when the last time she won a match, let alone outside of this one. She's won this match, but I don't know when the last time she won another match. So it ought to be interesting what they do with her. I definitely think Naomi should cash in and win. But I would think it depends on what's going on with the women's world title on Raw, because I'm not sure what's going on over there outside of EO just pointing at her own head. I'm not sure what's happening. But Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton, or Naomi cashing out Tiffany Stratton, could be interesting. A lot of people have floated the idea that Naomi could lose. Her being the first one to lose would be crazy. She hasn't been a world champion in a long time. I think Naomi winning the title should be the bridge to Jade Cargill winning it. I think using Naomi as a transitional champion, as it's basically kindling for the Naomi, not even Naomi, I misspoke. The Bianca Belair Jade Cargill story, which they're clearly building. They're clearly building some kind of issue between the two of them. If Jade Cargill is the champion when Bianca returns, which she probably won't be out that much longer. So let's just assume 3-4 months. So if you get the belt on Naomi pretty quickly, I would imagine the winner of the King of the Ring is going to challenge EO. But if you get the belt onto Naomi soon, within the next week or 2 or 3, and you give her the run until about Survivor Series, thereabouts. And then she drops the belts to Jade Cargill. Then you have Jade be the champion, and you could always tease the dissension between her and Bianca. I think in that story, Jade should be the heel, but that seems to be the direction that they kind of want to go in with these three. And obviously there'll be a triple threat match between the three of them at some point as well. But I think she is very important on the roster right now. So her being the Money in the Bank winner is a good decision. You didn't lose anything. You didn't miss out on anything by not putting it on anybody else. That being said, you can't say the same thing for Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins winning the Money in the Bank. Oh my Lord Jesus. This was something. It was better than the women's match. But that's only because it seemingly made more sense. Seth Rollins gets jumped by everybody in the ring. Oh, I forgot to tell you who's in it. Seth Rollins, Andrade El Idolo, LA Knight, Penta, Solo Sikoa, El Grande Americano. So Seth Rollins gets jumped by everybody because he's, due to his dickheadedness that he's been having all week. Then the commentary and their banter about El Grande Americano really popped me. For starters, you had Wade Barrett saying that El Grande Americano and Chad Gable are not the same person. And he knows because they have different nipples. And Michael Cole even says, I've done a lot of research. I've never done research while looking at a man's nipples. And I couldn't help but chuckle at it because it was so over the top. And that's what comedy should be. Next, Michael Cole mentioned correctly that El Grande Americano was wearing Chad Gable's boots that had CG on the boots. Then Pat McAfee starts talking about how he leased the boots to El Grande, leased them for a fee apparently to El Grande Americano. Then Michael Cole says that the ankle lock is vintage Chad Gable. Pat McAfee once again pipes in and says vintage Kurt Angle, vintage Ken Shamrock. I mean, I love that these guys who are not really the heel commentators, because I don't even think Wade Barrett even counts as a heel commentator, and I don't think Pat McAfee does either. But they're both jumping in, being dumb and buying into this. I like it. It really gets it over. And guess what? The Hispanic audience really likes El Grande Americano. I know all the white liberals are pitching a bitch, but they like this guy. The crowd is chanting, that's Chad Gable, and the other half is chanting, no, he's not. They like this gimmick. See, they liked the gimmick when Elias was doing it too, right? And Triple H killed it. They like this gimmick. This gimmick works. As long as the performer is legitimately buying into the gimmick, the crowd will buy into it. That's the silly thing about wrestling. The fans want to be a part of the show. They want to be a part of the show. You don't really have to trick them anymore. All right, let's go into some of the highlights. Penta hit a superplex on Seth Rollins off the ladder. That was pretty nuts. They had a fireball ladder, which is a branded ladder. They got branded ladders now. They got branded tables now. It's too much. It's way too much advertising. This stuff is visual poison. I'm as capitalist as you could possibly be, dog, but this is visual pollution. This shit is everywhere now. It's getting ridiculous. I'm going to wake up one day and they're going to have some shit tattooed on my own forehead. You're like, no way, man. No, you're going to buy a Topps card or something like that. It'll have a McDonald's logo on it or something. It's just ridiculous. At some point, they're going to find a way to slap an ad on the tickets you bought. It's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. Okay, Seth Rollins was in trouble. He called in his goons. So Braun Squared came in and they beat everybody up. And here comes Jacob Fatu and JC Mateo. They came in and they fought off Braun Squared. Jacob Fatu actually started helping Solo. Solo climbs the ladder and then Jacob betrays him. I hate you! Instead of saying, I hate you, Solo, he said, I hate you! He pulls Solo off the ladder, gives him the big moonsault, leaves him dead in the ring. It was crazy. It seemingly it didn't hit as hard as it should have for some reason. And I think it was because of the lag and how long it took for it to happen. But the crowd was there initially when the turn began. But by the time he did the moonsault, they kind of flat on it. I don't know. But I also don't like Jacob Fatu being a babyface. Look, I know that he's really good and you want to go with the audience, but he's not really going to get that over messing around with Solo. I just don't see it lasting very long. I think he had more longevity as a heel, but it also might not matter at this point. He's a U.S. champion. It might not matter. So Solo is pretty much done after Jacob turns on him. This pretty much leaves LA Knight and Seth Rollins at the end. LA Knight, I mean, he does an absolutely nasty side suplex on El Grande Americano off the ladder. And whatever they're paying Chad Gable, after what he went through with El Hijo del Vikingo, and then this, you're not paying that man enough. You are not. I need to be his agent. Because the bumps he took just in that first match was insane. And he went out here in this ladder match, wasn't even the main event, and took a bunch of bumps again. The guy is something else. And I'm really getting emotionally invested in this guy. Should be up the card because he's working a little too hard. So LA Knight gets the big stomp in the head by Seth Rollins, and Rollins just climbs the ladder and wins. There's that. There was no Punk. There was no Roman. Nobody really tried to stop him. Nobody was really around to stop him. And there it is. You know, we're living in a wrestling business where everybody is very kind to their ops. They don't seem to mind if their ops, succeed. And there's no good reason why CM Punk or Roman Reigns couldn't show up with a kendo stick and chase Rollins off, hit him, and we go in a different direction. It's too safe. It's too boring. Triple H is absolutely in love with Seth Rollins. It's ridiculous. The amount of, basically nepotism, as Seth Rollins was the first NXT champion. The fact that they're still pushing this guy 10 years into his WWE run, he should not be winning Money in the Banks. I said it before. I said it when I did the review. the preview. That the reason he would win it would be to boost the credibility of the briefcase, and basically say, even though he's won this before, he hasn't won it as a main event guy. And Randy Orton has won the Money in the Bank as a certified main event guy, and so has John Cena and Drew McIntyre. So it's not like he's the first bona fide main event guy to win the Money in the Bank. But in a situation where he's got two major main event opponents and neither one of them tried to stop him from winning, that's a little unrealistic and it's kind of stupid. And it goes to show that these shows probably have like a hard cap on how many people can be featured on the program. Otherwise, it's pretty stupid to have this occur. But now we gotta sit around and treat Seth Rollins like he's the most important person in the business. He's really boring to a lot of people, myself included. And I was a fan. I was one of the people that stands up for Seth Rollins. I like his matches, but I don't think this is working. I think he has been absolutely insufferable since Triple H took over. He's been insufferable, and it's not working out. Now, a lot of people are heartbroken. A lot of those people are LA Knight fans. Their third year in a row, LA Knight was positioned as a top guy and, was supposed to win Money in the Bank, and Triple H decided to go in a different direction. They're starting to take it personally that Triple H just doesn't see it in LA Knight. There is a very bizarre disconnect between what the office sees and what the audience is looking at. And this disconnect is always going to exist because as a creative, you write a story and the story is written, or the idea should be written before the fans even see it. So this means that Triple H had, a vision of what he wanted to do with the Money in the Bank and with Seth Rollins before we saw it. But that's why you say, okay, things are not happening immediately, give it some time. But it's been 2 years already, at least 2 years, with people saying that they want LA Knight. People buying his merchandise. I'm not sure if he's a top merchandise seller anymore. I know he was at one point, but maybe people gave up. Maybe people tapped out. Maybe people said enough's enough. It's maybe. He's doing the Slim Jim commercials, so clearly, whoever is picking human resources or whatever, who is picking this ad sales or whatever, those people see something that's marketable in LA Knight because he's doing all the Slim Jim stuff. But Triple H, in terms of creative, it's not getting in his brain. His big, bald, empty head, it ain't working. He don't see LA Knight as a main event talent. And I don't know why. It's hard to explain. But I don't think it's going to happen for you. If it will happen, it's not going to happen on SmackDown, certainly. Maybe hold out some hope for when he gets to Raw, which I think he probably will get to Raw in the draft. And hold out some hope there that with Gunther and Jey Uso on the roster as the top guys and Sami Zayn as a top guy, that he might be able to get the championship then. But at the same time, now that Seth Rollins is the Money in the Bank winner, maybe not. Maybe all the championship windows are closed. The world title windows are closed. And maybe LA Knight is one of these guys that he hit the mid-card ceiling. He's not going to beat Jacob Fatu either. So you're probably looking at this guy waiting until they try to take the belt off of Dominic Mysterio. And even then, it's not a guarantee. So all of these doors are closed to him. What you do, put him in a tag team? That might be your best option, but that's not going to satisfy his fans. They want him to be a main event talent. But people in hell want ice water. You're not going to get it. Give up. Tap out. Call it a day. Throw in the towel. Say uncle. Surrender. Wave the white flag. If you're an LA Knight fan, stop it. What are you doing? Seek help. All right, speaking of Intercontinental Championship, Octagon Jr. was defeated by Dominic Mysterio. Octagon Jr., one of the AAA guys who also has a TNA contract and made a big appearance here on Money in the Bank. Normally, I would scratch my head and probably scream about how other people deserve this spot. Dragon Lee, Rey Fenix, any of the other Mexican guys you could have come up with us on your roster already. The Karrion Crosses, all these guys who probably deserve this match more than Octagon Jr. And if you're going to make that argument, I'm not going to argue with you. The issue here is, the reason why I'm going to give this a pass is because Triple H's booking has been so boring and so flat that when you do something completely out of the box, like build up this match a few hours before it happens, I'm in. Okay, let's see what you do. So for those of you who didn't watch Worlds Collide, you should. It was a really good show. But they had a six-man tag, Mr. Iguana, Octagon Jr., and Aerostar versus Dragon Lee, Lince Dorado, and Cruz del Toro. Lince Dorado, tremendous. Mr. Iguana, out of all the people who tried to die on this show, everybody who landed on their head awkwardly and tore up a knee, busted up their spine, it's the guy with a iguana puppet. He got over more than anybody else on the entire show. And again, not the biggest star in AAA, but the people really like him. And Lince Dorado attacked his iguana, stomped it, gave it an elbow drop, gave it a Spanish fly. The crowd was hot. They were so mad at Lince Dorado for attacking that iguana. That was one of the biggest pops of the entire night. Octagon Jr. was in this match. He hugged Rey Mysterio, who brought us, who did a promo before the show really started, which was after the national anthems and all this sort of stuff. Octagon hugged Rey. His dad, of course, works in AAA as well. Well, I think his dad is suing AAA. Never mind. After the match, Dominic Mysterio calls out Octagon, who got the pin, by the way. He pinned Lince Dorado. He called out Octagon Jr. has been a fan of his dad's, but his dad is a deadbeat. And they got into it. There was a altercation, you could say. And they fought back and forth, which led to Dominic Mysterio actually challenging Octagon Jr. for this Intercontinental Championship match tonight. And I was like, oh, okay, this is very good. And this match cooked. It was a good one. Octagon Jr. hit a Tornado Vader Bomb. He's a small guy, so his body control is pretty fucking cool. He did a Fisherman Net Breaker, which I have not seen in a long time. I haven't seen somebody break that out in a long time. And also did a Springboard Tornado Press. But Dominic didn't really do much. He kind of just absorbed a lot of damage and played the heel role, which was pretty good. When he was ready, there was some cheating from Liv Morgan. Then there was a 619 and a frog splash, and Dominic Mysterio wins. It was pretty simple, cheating. So Octagon kind of got an out. You'll probably never see this guy again on WWE TV, so don't concern yourself with it. This was very much a Tony Khan booking where we gotta fill 20 minutes on the show, so let's throw this guy on the show. And it worked. They actually did something smart by, actually teasing it earlier. And it seemed like Triple H remembered that Dominic Mysterio was the Intercontinental Champion, because he seemingly has forgotten for a really long time who the Intercontinental Champion was. And most people have forgotten. So good on them for remembering. All right. Becky Lynch wins the Women's Intercontinental Championship, defeating Lyra Valkyria, a.k.a. the Bird Lady. So Mockingbird took a DDT from Becky Lynch, and she sold it pretty well. Mockingbird then hit a superplex into a fisherman suplex, which was pretty sweet. The Bird Lady also went for a leg drop on a barricade. Bird Lady gets caught in a Superman handle slam off the second rope, and she kicked out. I was like, all right, this bitch is superhuman. All right. This is the same move that beat Bianca Belair in like 5 seconds. This Mockingbird chick just took a goddamn manhandle slam off the second rope, and she kicked out. I was like, all right, enough's enough. This is some indie shit, right? And I was right when I said this was some indie shit, because the finish was that the Bird Lady did a victory roll of sorts. Becky Lynch countered it and pulled the tights. Bird Lady gets pinned, is very distraught. Becky Lynch wins the Intercontinental Championship, is now a Triple Crown champion. The first women's Triple Crown champion in WWE. Won the world title, tag team title, and a women's mid-card championship. She's the only one of her kind. She's one of one in terms of stats right now. According to the rules of this match, Lyra Valkyria had to raise Becky Lynch's hand after the match. She did it. And then Becky got pretty indulgent and made her do it to all four sides of the ring. At that point, she continued piling on and forced Lyra Valkyria to put the belt on her. Lyra straps the belt to Becky Lynch and then throws her in a German suplex before leaving the ring. This is not over, but this was probably one of their better matches. They work very well together. Obviously, they know each other extremely well. I like their matches. I think they're doing a good job. Bird Lady is finding something. It's going to be hard for her to break out of her shell, but she's finding her voice, and she's finding some passion and some fire, and that's needed. That's what gets people over. Not just holding belts forever, but actually being able to show some personality, show a spine when needed. She did the honorable thing and was a woman of her word, and then Becky Lynch took it to the next level and tried to humiliate her, and she didn't allow it. That's what people are going to remember. People are going to remember, yeah, you lost, but you honored your word, as you said you were going to. You raised her hand. You even went, above and beyond. Strapped the belt to her, raised her arm on all sides of the arena. But enough's enough. You're not a doormat. The main event of the evening, Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes defeat John Cena and Logan Paul when Cody Rhodes hits John Cena with the crossroads and pins him. Logan Paul was the workhorse in this match, which was a ballsy move considering he is the least experienced person in the match. But his strikes looked decent enough, especially his body punches. There was some arguing and miscommunication between Logan Paul and John Cena, where Logan Paul's ego was getting out of control. He started pushing John, and they started pushing each other. Logan Paul ended up splashing John Cena while he was trying to help, which was a mistake. And then they did this beautiful drone spot where after Logan Paul hit the pulverizer, he's cocky, so he goes to the top rope. He's going to do something else. He actually calls the drone to him, holds the drone in his hand. Cody Rhodes gets up, pops up to the top rope. It's supposed to be like Kurt Angle, but it's Cody. So, he's not at that level of athleticism. And Logan Paul is holding the drone when the superplex occurs. And let me tell you, that was an absolutely crazy vantage point. I love that vantage point. It was great. And I think they also did a spot where he got splashed in that position as well. Jey Uso speared Cena across the announce desk, but it did not break. It looked like it hurt like hell. Logan Paul followed this up with a moonsault, acai moonsault, onto that announce desk, broke it in half. Jey is down. Everything is looking rosy for the bad guys. The referee is distracted. John Cena gets the championship belt, hits Cody Rhodes with it. And then a man jumps in the ring. He's wearing a black jumpsuit. He attacks John Cena, beats him up a little bit, takes off the hood, and it's Ron fucking Killings, his Uncle Truth. Uncle R-Truth is back. He hits John Cena with the belt. Cody Rhodes awakens, hits Cena with the crossroads. 1, 2, 3. Cena wins. Uncle Ron is back. All is right with the world. Now we know that it was John Cena who can't handle the truth. I was very excited to see Uncle Ron back. And he's announced as Ron Killings. He's not going by the name R-Truth anymore. So this, of course, leads to question, was he really released? And then they saw the fan backlash. They heard the chants and decided, no, we're going to just bring him back. Or was it that it was a work? This is the beauty of pro wrestling. I don't want to know the answer, to be quite honest. I don't care if it was a work. If it was a work, it was a great work because it got everybody. It even got Jim Cornette if it was a great work. If it was real and they doubled back and said, okay, maybe we don't do this, then it was smart decision making by management that R-Truth is not a guy you can just get rid of, and that the fans have an emotional attachment to him, then you have to bring him back, do the right thing, and they did it. Now the issue is now that he's back, and they seemingly are going to make him more serious because he was not goofy, and he's not going by the goofy R-Truth name. What do you do with him now? The guy's 53 years old. Do we have another match with John Cena and R-Truth? Does R-Truth continue to his angle of John Cena being his childhood hero? How are we going to further this angle? And that's really what I'm thinking of, because Triple H has a knack for hitting a good note and then there's very little follow-up. Hopefully there's a plan. Hopefully there's a plan for R-Truth's return. And I'm okay with him being a more serious performer. I think he can knock it out of the park doing that. It might be a thing where he's just running out the rest of this contract, because again, we don't know what's happening. This might be a farewell run. We don't know. And I love the idea of not knowing. That's why I watch pro wrestling. I watch pro wrestling because even though I know it's not real, there are things, there's magic to it. And there's things that you don't want to know. There's things that you don't want to figure out how it works. I don't need to know right now whether R-Truth was brought back through the company pressure or whether it was a work. I don't need to know that right now. Tell me in 5 years. All right? When all this is said and done and they can sit around on a podcast or whatever and talk about it, tell me then. I don't need Sean Ross dipshit or Meltzer or whoever opining on it, telling me something Tuesday afternoon and spoiling the whole fucking thing. I don't need that. I want to actually enjoy the show. I want to actually get caught up in the angles. Don't fucking tell me what's going to happen, but they're going to do it anyway. Probably by the time this video was played for public consumption, it's going to be some dipshit who wouldn't even find out, oh yeah, R-Truth, yeah, this is really what's happening. Yeah, this is what I don't need to know that. We don't need to know that. We need to just be able to enjoy the moment. To be able to just say, hey, this was a strong angle. We like this. It doesn't matter how we got what we wanted. We wanted R-Truth back. He's back. Okay, let's run with it. Now what's next? Now we got this part. Now what's next? It was the same damn thing when John Cena turned heel. Everybody was in a rush to try to explain and tell us how it happened and what was going on and the politics behind it. And then we got completely off track and people stopped paying attention to John Cena doing John Cena shit. And of course, him being very bad at it didn't help matters. But leave us alone. Let us enjoy the moment. All right, so obviously, Cody Rhodes pinned John Cena. He's going to get a title shot next. Jey Uso's got Gunther, but you also got Seth Rollins floating around with the Money in the Bank. Clearly, they're probably going to have Jey Uso beat Gunther, and then the Money in the Bank cash in. They're probably going to turn it into a triple threat match because, hey, why have a singles match on TV? Who knows? But I'm pretty sure Jey Uso is not going to make it to Night of Champions as the World Heavyweight Champion. And I'm okay with that. I'm over it. I've been over the Jey Uso thing for a while now. And everybody knows this. I haven't been shy about it. You know, it was a good experiment. It was a nice try. He earned it. He sold a bunch of t-shirts. He's super over. But enough's enough. This shit's been going on almost a year, over a year now. It's been going on almost 2 years with the arm waving and the yeeting and all. No, enough's enough. It's too much. Let's get back to regularly scheduled programming. Let's get some other babyface in here. Somebody who has a second and third dimension to their character. And Uso has that, but they don't never use it. And that's why I'm tired of it. If they change Jey Uso just a little bit so that he's back to being kind of like what he was in the right-hand man, I would be fine with him being the world champion. I don't want to deal with this yeeting cartoon bullshit. I don't want to deal with this anymore. Enough's enough of this. I hate in wrestling when catchphrases catch on like this. That's why I kind of wasn't a big fan of the Attitude Era where everybody had a catchphrase. And so everybody seemed like they were super fucking over. And it was just people wanting to do the catchphrase all the time. People try to pretend that Road Dogg was good because they liked doing his introductions. Fuck no, he wasn't. Alright? He wasn't good. He tried to pretend that Too Cool was good because folks like to do the dance. They weren't fucking good. They sucked. Alright? There is a certain level of, alright, the catchphrase boosts the character. Daniel Bryan was one of them. Then there is, this guy is 99% catchphrase. That's what's going on with Jey Uso right now. It's mostly catchphrase. He has second and third gears to that character. They don't use them. So get rid of it. Just stop it. If that's all we're going to do is he's going to come through the crowd yeeting. Enough's enough. Call it a day. He can yeet without the belt. Do all the yeeting you want without the belt. I don't give a fuck, okay? So that was Money in the Bank. The long and the short of it. The early part of the show had a really good pace to it. It didn't seem like it was super long. And then we got to the men's Money in the Bank and the main event, and it seemed like the show just stretched in time. due mostly to the entrances of all of these guys taking so long, and then the matches having so much time. But the early part of the show was pretty good. I really liked Octagon Jr. versus Dominic Mysterio. I really liked Becky Lynch versus Mockingbird, Lyra Valkyria. I enjoyed both of those matches. So I like Money in the Bank. I'm not a big fan of Seth Rollins winning. And I like the surprise of R-Truth's return. So I give the show a thumbs up. The better show of the weekend, of course, was Worlds Collide. So Worlds Collide was interesting because this was WWE introducing a whole new audience to Lucha Libre. And a lot of the Lucha Libre fans were not a fan of that. They didn't like the idea that, WWE AAA is what, you were going to be watching. They wanted the chaotic, nonsensical AAA of the last several years. And just something as simple as guys actually tagging in tag matches was driving those folks nuts. And I'll tell you, I've watched enough AAA. I don't, commit this shit to memory. But I watched AAA. I watch it pretty regularly. Tagging is non-existent in Mexico. And they're definitely going to change it stylistically when they go back to Mexico and do shows. It's probably going to go right back to being the shit where it's not on time, where, there's going to be heel referees. There was no heel referees on this show. It was a straight up, mostly traditional Lucha Libre show, but it wasn't a AAA show. And AAA shows are usually a lot more chaotic. And it was in front of a WWE audience. They're chanting, "We want truth." They're chanting, "We want tables." They're chanting for, they burned out on the big moves. Like a Mexican audience would have really, really loved this show because they liked all the flashy moves. A WWE audience looking for a little bit more in the way of character and performance and story and emotional investment. So they missed some of the things in this show that was actually pretty solid in terms of big moves, and it actually hurt the show in terms of crowd reaction. Conan was on commentary. He was absolutely cooked. I mean, cooked meat. Just no good. He was on commentary with Corey Graves. Corey Graves did his best. His little brother actually works for AAA, but he wasn't on the show. I guess he's going to work in Mexico when they figure this thing out. Apparently, nobody has a contract yet, which was, of course, the big lie that you were told that certain people were getting contracts. Apparently, nobody has a contract yet, but WWE is basically evaluating the talent roster. So, again, I talked about the first match already. Mr. Iguana, Octagon Jr., and Aerostar defeating Dragon Lee, Lince Dorado, and Cruz del Toro. The second match on the show was Lola Vice and Stephanie Vaquer, who defeated Dalise and Chica Tormenta. They did the Devil's Kiss at the same time. Lola Vice and Stephanie Vaquer got everybody's blood pressure up. The crowd knew exactly what to do when it comes to the Booker T soundbite, and they were on point for that. This match was short. It wasn't particularly great, but they got it in the ring. This was definitely the worst match of the weekend. Definitely the worst match on the show. And I think there was probably just some clunkiness there. And speaking of clunky, there was also some clunkiness in the next match. But this was the match that kind of killed the crowd. Santos Escobar, Berto, and Angel, together they're known as Legado del Fantasma. They defeated Pagano, Psycho Clown, and El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., or who they're calling Dr. Wagner III. All right? Which probably is the best way to how to translate that name. Instead of El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., they're calling him Dr. Wagner III. This was a really fun match, but it was also quite sloppy. Earlier in the night, Octagon Jr. ate the floor because Lince Dorado didn't get up in time to catch him on the suicide dive. But this was Pagano eating the floor on purpose, because that's his style. He likes to take stupid bumps and damn near kill. He's a hardcore wrestler, Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with this guy, but he likes to eat the floor. The AAA guys, of course, got Def Rebelled extremely hard. So the crowd couldn't really pop on the themes because it's like, I don't know who these people are. These theme songs are Death Rebel to death. But it is what it is. There was a tortured spot here where Psycho Clown suplexed both of the Garzas, but it started out with one of the guys having him around the waist, and then the other guy grabbed the other guy around the waist, and then Psycho Clown reversed it and ended up in between them. Then he reversed it again and ended up behind them. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Why is this happening? Anyway, it was a fun match. And then Santos Escobar hit the Phantom Driver on El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., a.k.a. Dr. Wagner III, and pinned him. And the crowd pissed the floor. And the internet very mad. The Puro fans were obviously the most angry. Because even though Santos Escobar, of course, was a main event guy in Mexico, under the name of El Hijo del Fantasma. Even though he was a main event guy, he had lost his mask in some kind of cage match or some shit. Penta and Psycho Clown was in that match. I remember watching that when he lost his mask. In any event, even though he was a top guy and worked in Mexico extensively and all that stuff, he didn't never work in Japan. He wasn't like a huge star in Japan. And apparently Dr. Wagner III was a world champion in Japan in pro wrestling Noah. And so the idea that a WWE mid-carder would beat a pro wrestling Noah world champion in a 6-man tag match made them want to eat Bibles. It's like, man, get fucked. Who cares? Who cares? And of course, everybody was like, this must be politics because this guy was offered a WWE contract before WWE bought AAA, and he refused because they wanted to unmask him. So then they said, okay, well, I guess we're going to beat you on this show. I don't know if it's that deep. All right. It might not be that deep. They might be building to something else. It's likely they're going to build a singles match between Santos Escobar and Dr. Wagner III. That seems to be the best logical argument. Because apparently the Garzas both are going to be at Tripomania Regia, which is it's their version of WrestleMania, except for there's more than one. There's multiple Triple Manias. I don't know why they only told you about the one in August, but there's another one not too long from now, and the Garzas are going to be on that show. So that's why they won, right? Because the Garzas are going to be wrestling on that show, and they have to look credible. Now, Pagano probably would have been the guy I would have pinned. I wouldn't have pinned Dr. Wagner Jr., but, El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., because it's not the same person. But, decisions have to be made, and I don't know what Conan's cooking. I don't have no idea. But that's the decision that they made, and the people were pretty pissed about this. They were not happy. I said it Tuesday when the idea was floated that Psycho Clown could lose this match, and El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. All these guys are pretty well known, pretty big stars in Mexico. The idea that these guys would lose, I said the fans would piss all over it, and they did. That's exactly what happened. And they pissed on this so bad that they pretty much pissed on the next match too. It took a lot to get the next match over. The next match was the NXT North American title. Rey Fenix, Ethan Page, Javon Evans, Laredo Kid. This match was extremely fun. Javon Evans fit in to the AAA system like a glove. And it was his dives and his work that got the crowd back into it. Because the crowd, again, they were not happy at the end of that 6-man tag. But these guys worked very, very hard to get the crowd back in. They worked extremely hard. Just some crazy dives and a twisting coast to coast like move by Javon Evans. He was the MVP of this match. Absolute MVP. He did a really good job here. Laredo Kid ate the pin from Ethan Page with a twisted grin. Laredo Kid also works in TNA, but he's a professional pin eater in TNA. So it is what it is. This was one of the better matches on the show. Not the best, but one of the better matches on the show. The main event, El Hijo del Vikingo versus Chad Gable for the AAA Mega Championship. And these boys just threw everything at each other. This match was absurd. This is one of the most absurd wrestling matches I've ever seen. The crazy thing is, the internet wrestling fans spent the entire month since WrestleMania talking about how cooked El Hijo del Vikingo is. How he ain't got it anymore. How he's beat to shit. And all of this is very much true because if you watch this match, he takes a long time to do anything. To stabilize himself on the ropes, on the ring post or whatever, he takes those extra seconds to make sure he's not going to slip and fall. And that takes away submersion into the match. Like, you can't really get into the match if you see a guy actually preparing to do something and the other guy just allowing him the time to do that. So that's a big strike against this match. But these guys just emptied the chamber on each other, for God's sake. But I liked it from the very beginning. I did a video package where Chad Gable talked about being a star and all this, yada, yada, yada. And then El Hijo del Vikingo says, "You do headlocks. I make magic in the air." I was like, oh, he's getting cocky. He's getting cocky. Anyway. El Hijo del Vikingo, I'm just going to call him Vikingo. Vikingo did a meteora through the ropes with his knees, which looked terribly bad. It looked like it hurt so bad. He also landed a 630 on a crouching Chad Gable. Absolutely absurd. A flying double stomp on a hanging Chad Gable. And then he did a twisting 450 off the second rope. And he was outside the ring and flipped inside the ring. It was absolutely absurd. And then Chad Gable did the thing on the show. One of the two things on the show where I was like, fuck you, this match should be over. A top rope. It was supposed to be a sit out, like Batista bomb, like a Liger bomb from the top rope, which would have been bad enough. But because it was sloppy, it looked like a pile driver. And then Vikingo sold it like he had gotten shot. And I'm thinking, holy fuck, that looked like it hurt like hell. And then he kicked out, and I was like, what the fuck? Why? Why are you doing this? Why can't you just stay down? What are you doing? And then Vikingo, he climbs up on the ring post, because this match is continuing, and he did a diving Mexican Destroyer on the ring apron. I'm like, why on earth? Why on earth would Chad Gable take that bump? And he took the bump. Of course it wasn't the fucking finish. They had more to do. They did more shit. Then Chad Gable moonsaults to Vikingo. While Vikingo's landing, they broke a table in a regular match. And of course, that wasn't the fucking finish either. I'm like, alright, look. Somebody give this motherfucker a 45 and just pistols at dawn. Alright? They doing way too much. It's getting absurd. Right? They're jumping from high places and landing on their heads. They're power driving each other in crazy positions. Enough's enough. Let's call it a day. Right? After the moonsault press through the table didn't work, El Hijo del Vikingo hits his 630 splash after a poison Rana to win the match. Look, it's probably going to get an extremely high rating in the Meltzer and the cage match and all this. But this was too much. No, this is entirely too much. And they wanted to showcase Vikingo, so I'm pretty sure they just let the whatever limits they put on these guys usually, they just threw them out of the window. But my God, bro. Like, once, I guess because it was the main event, it was fine because nobody was trying to follow this. Which I guess you could add points for that because nobody was, it's not like they did this shit in the first match. You know, there's power drivers on the ring apron and power bombs from the top rope. And it's the first match on the show. It's the main event. But to have to go through all that, you do break some, it's just, you're trying to get into the show. And not only is this guy taking forever to do the big moves, but they're hitting each other with things that should be stretcher spots, and they're continuing. It's just crazy. This is crazy. It's nuts. But it's going to get a really high rating. It was a good match overall. but it was way too much. It was too busy. So both shows, both Worlds Collide and Money in the Bank, were good shows. I give the edge to Worlds Collide due to the fun factor and the fact that, everybody watching it had a pretty good time with it. And Money in the Bank, I think there was just some things that were kind of inconsequential on there, like that tag team match and Octagon versus Dominic Mysterio, even though I enjoyed it. But a lot of the footage and promos, like the intro promo to the Worlds Collide show was fantastic. It was narrated by Rey Mysterio in Spanish, and they're talking about the history of Lucha Libre and what AAA means and all this sort of stuff. It was great. It was a great introduction to people who've never watched the brand before. Very good introduction to people who don't watch the product. But the people who do watch the product, they noted how different the product was. Again, something as simple as guys making tags, no heel referees, no exoticos, no midgets. Exoticos are cross-dressers, by the way, for those of you who don't know. No midgets. And so I'm imagining they're going to do their own shows in Mexico, and nobody's going to be standing over them, telling them what they can and can't do. But in the United States, they probably won't do a lot of that stuff. But Worlds Collide also had the worst show of the weekend, where, Dalise and Chica Tormenta versus Lola Vice and Stephanie Vaquer. So, but I still had fun with that first match. And Chad Gable and Vikingo, before they started, they was going to try to murder each other. I had a lot of fun with that one too. And even the Legado del Fantasma match, I thought that was pretty good. And the Fatal 4-Way match is pretty good too. Okie dokie. So, very solid weekend of WWE performances. Hey, there's not much to complain about here. Not much to complain about at all. So, we're going to talk about now some news and notes just to get these things out of the way. Nikki Bella is returning. So, after abusing her husband, getting divorced, and then being so bad that she has to pay child support and alimony, she's coming back to work. Well, she needs to come back to work because now she got to pay those debts. You got to bring your ass back to work now. But this is going to be the build up to Evolution, clearly, right? So I'm interested in seeing where they go with this. Some people are offended. They're upset. She's a domestic abuser. She threw a shoe at her husband, and who knows what else she did to him. And that if she were a man, she would be blackballed. But we know that women live life on easy mode and that they are not really responsible for their behavior. We already know that. She's been back since that happened. So I'm not surprised at all she's going to get another run at it. Another crack at it. I ain't surprised at all. And you know what? I don't even care. They're bringing her in because they want to sell tickets for this Evolution show. You should be able to do that without Nikki Bella, but they look at her like a legend. And they look at Nikki Bella like, she's Trish Stratus for that generation. And she is a draw for that generation. It would be a lie to say she's not. So that's why they're bringing her back. And now she's got to pay all this alimony and child support or whatever the hell. Might as well get her on the cheap while you can. Bring her in while you can. Hopefully she's not going to fuck up anything. And maybe they put her in somebody's corner. And she's not actually going to wrestle. And she's going to be a manager or something like that. That would be more interesting than her actually wrestling. But as long as they do something interesting, I'm okay with them bringing her back. But we already know, and it must be expressed, that if she was a man, she would not be welcome back. And we already know this. So let's talk about Shane McMahon. We'll close on Shane's story. Shane is accosted by TMZ Sports. He's outside and he's listening to them ask him questions. And he's asked two questions that, are worth talking about. The conversation he had with AEW, and he's asked about Vince. So we're going to focus on the one about Vince. We'll probably talk about the one about AEW some other time. So he says that Vince owns a big part of TKO still, so you never know what's going to happen. He says, I'm just saying anything can happen. This is in regards to Vince perhaps buying back the WWE. Everybody with a brain knows that this is not going to happen because TKO most specifically Endeavor, who owns TKO, is not going to sell WWE. The thing is, TKO is the conglomeration of UFC and WWE, and that conglomeration is owned by Endeavor. They're not going to sell it to Vince. Will they sell it to the Saudis for an absurd amount of money? Maybe. Could Vince join some consortium with the Saudis and get the company that way? Maybe. But right now, I'm not even sure if it's legal for Vince to even be in the wrestling business, nor am I sure if it's even legal for Endeavor to sell WWE. Literally, they bought the business 3 years ago. I don't think they even made a profit off of it yet. I don't think they made any money off the company yet. Look, I know that they're making money hand over fist through advertising and ticket sales and all this sort of stuff. I forgot how much they bought the company for. I think it was $9 billion or something crazy like that, $8 billion. I'm not sure with all the expenses and everything that they made their money back yet. So, and I'm not even sure that they legally can, because there's a lot of mumbo jumbo in these lawsuits about non-disclosures. Vince has a non-disclosure in his lawsuit, in his contract, right? When he was the executive chairman, he couldn't compete with WWE for X amount of years. So I don't know if he can even get into the wrestling business. Second is, when you do a big purchase like this, usually you incur a lot of debt, for starters, which of course, if they were going to buy the company, they could of course take care of the debt. But you also sign some things where you can't flip the company within a certain amount of time. There's a lot of stuff in there that won't allow you to just do quick flips like this. He could talk about buying the company back. He's gonna have to live long enough for Endeavor to start getting pissed and wanting to get rid of it. If he lives to be 95, it's like another 10 years or something like that, then maybe. Like if he lives another 10 years, he'd be 88 or something like that. Maybe by then Endeavor will be ready to sell it, but not right now. They haven't even gotten what they want out of the damn thing yet. So no, Shane is just stirring the pot. It sounds good that, the Saudis are going to help Vince buy the company back. But Vince just sold 250 million shares of TKO back to Endeavor, or WWE to Endeavor. I don't know how that works. I don't pay attention to it. So he just got a whole boatload of cash. He just started up a new business, 14th and I. He's doing other stuff. I know that there's a lot of people who want Vince back because they don't like how Triple H is handling things. I'm one of those people. But I also, again, recognize that Vince is almost 80 and it couldn't go on forever. There had to be a change at some point. I just hate that it ended up being fucking sex trafficking, but it had to change at some point. He's either going to die in the seat or become so mentally incompetent that other people are basically going to use him as a puppet. But you can't force people to sell things. Like Elon Musk was so aggressive with buying Twitter that the shareholders didn't have a choice. Now, if the Saudis were to do something like that, where they were so aggressive into buying WWE specifically, that Endeavor would get sued if they didn't sell it, maybe something like that could happen. But then they would have to offer an absurd amount of money in order for that to occur. They would have to offer like $20 billion or something like that. Because that would be like twice what Endeavor paid for it, thereabouts. 2, maybe 3 times what they paid for it. That would be so ridiculously aggressive that they would have to sell it. But that's not what's going to be offered. All right? That's just not what's going to be offered. Nobody's going to do that. And then if they were to do that, Vince doesn't have $20 billion. Doesn't even have half that to put up to buy the company. So then at that point, it'd just be the Saudis owning it. And then how is he going to get it from them? He would have to, again, put in his nickels. So they'd put in like all these many billions. And then, of course, you're going to destroy the brand as soon as it's not American. Because if it ends up being a Saudi-owned brand, it's over with for WWE. It's cooked. It's cooked. Like, you think TKO is bad. Wait until the Saudis own it. It's, boy! And that endless oil money is behind it. Oh, Jesus Christ. Bad. Everybody's in a hijab. Hijabs for all. But I think that it's fun to discuss that Vince might be back. And that's all Shane is doing, is having a little fun. He knows this shit's not going to happen. He knows Vince is too old to fight this thing. He's got a lot of stuff going on. Maybe if all this shit is cleared up, he'll be able to come back in some kind of capacity. But Endeavor probably won't want that either because he's radioactive. Even if he's somehow slithers out of this situation, he's still radioactive for the Rita Chatterton stuff and a lot of the other things that he was, that came out in the lawsuit. And he would have to disprove all that shit and that everything was a fucking lie. And it's not possible for him to do that, It's not even logical that he could do that. So even if it was just he has dildos named after the wrestlers, it's so ridiculous that people are not going to take that seriously and not want him back in the company. And also, there are so many people who worked there when he was there who are now going to be like, hey, I don't want Vince to come back. They didn't want him to come back the first time. So I don't think so. It's a money issue. It's a legal issue. It's also a political issue. I don't think it's going to happen. I would be surprised if he manages to find his way back into WWE in any kind of capacity outside of maybe doing outside projects with some of the talent or doing something like that, like maybe doing documentaries or for the talent or something like that. I could see him doing something like that, but like being involved in the creative and in the running of the company, I don't think that's ever going to happen again. And he would have to have God tier connections, money, and just next level, almost Satan-like business dealing capacity in order to get back into that company or to get it back in his control. He would have to be the devil himself to end up back in control of that company before he dies. So that's the challenge. If Vince McMahon ever becomes the owner of WWE again, he will have to be Lucifer personified. He would have to have manipulated and cajoled somebody or some gaggle of fools so totally and completely that they gave him his company back. And I don't think he has that. He's a human being, all right? So I don't believe it. All right. I thoroughly enjoyed the WWE doubleheader, the AAA. I hope they do more of those World Collide shows. I don't need them to do them, monthly or every other month. But shortly before AAA's big events, I like the idea before the Triple Mania shows or the Rey de Reyes shows. I like that. Do it quarterly. Do 4 of them quarterly. I like that idea. I want to know what the distribution is going to be like when it comes to AAA, Triple Mania. Like, how are we going to watch it? It might end up on YouTube again because WWE hasn't found a TV home for AAA yet. So that might end up watching Triple Mania on YouTube. We don't know. But I'm interested in what they do there. And I'm interested in what's going on with R-Truth. I'm not interested at all in Seth Rollins, but they're going to force me to be. And I'm interested in what's going on with Naomi. So there's a lot of interesting things going on. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Have a blessed day. Peace out.